Hello everybody, welcome to the Claret and Blue mid-season review, I think we're calling it. We obviously normally do these at the end of the season. We were trying to work out, before we came on, firstly, is there any rum in that Coke? And neither of us can decide, so careful with that one. But also, what is this start of the show before we get into the Q&A? And for me, it's more just the kind of realisation of what a journey we've had so far this season. How bad we were, John, for those first 5 games. Could you have seen us climbing the league in the way that we have?
I think we should say thanks for everyone to coming first.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, mid-December and bad weather, so thanks everyone. Yeah, it was a terrible start, wasn't it? We did a Q&A at your house, I think, and we were taking questions about...
Is that the one with the notepad of all the stats?
No, that came after, but it was relegation, it was, are we too good to go down, and now it's, are we in a title race? So yeah, it's been an incredible last probably 3 months or so. Where are we? 15 wins out of 17, 9 in a row, 6 in the league, club record. It's been pretty mental going. I'm still wrapping my head around it, to be honest, because I still think we can improve from here in terms of performances. We'll get on to different bits later on. I'm sure people will ask about XG and whatnot, but the results have been incredible.
Matt, is this sustainable? Do you think? Are we in sustainable territory? 15 wins out of 17 is stupid, isn't it?
I'm not sure winning every week is sustainable, but I think we've given ourselves one hell of a chance to get back in that top 4 and get back in the Champions League. Well, we've got two cracks at it this year with Europa League, but it's almost reverse Aston Villa for me this season, because Villa, well, I mean, this big could still come, but Villa are so good at teasing you and threatening to do something good, and then the drop-off comes, whereas this season they've threatened to do something really terrible and all of a sudden surged up the league. So, you know, I think I put something on social media last night or whatever, and I've said it on the podcast before, keep telling my son, unprecedented times, enjoy it, savour it. This isn't Aston Villa. Shut up, Dad, let me watch the football. But these are really, really, really great times, and I'm sure we'll get onto it later, but just needs that something tangible, which I think I say every time we come here, don't I?
Yeah, we need something shiny and silver to be holding up. Is it just about that, though? We spoke about this a few weeks ago, that just winning every week in the league is pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, but we need to win every single week, because it's 30 years, Dan, isn't it? It's 30 years in 2026 since we've actually got our hands on any silverware, if you forget that big oversized thing that John Terry and James Chester paraded around in Germany a few years ago.
Cup of Traditions, was it?
The Cup of Traditions, yeah. And it's a massive cliche, but it is far too long. So as much as I love the winning feeling, I would love the winning feeling at Wembley, Istanbul, wherever we play at the last game of the season, lifting the Premier League trophy, one of those things.
Rodgers' goal against West Ham was 0.02, yeah. But that doesn't take into account that that's Morgan Rodgers taking the shot, does it?
I think that's really important. We can start with that, because Morgan Rodgers taking that shot, he's more likely to score that goal than...
Twice in 100.
Than Matt Doherty.
Yeah.
It doesn't account for Man City quality players or Wolves quality players. Aston Villa, luckily, have good players, so we can score goals from outside the box. It's too big of a sample size to say that Villa are now going to fall off and finish 12th. Because I think that's what some people want people to believe. I think we are doing incredibly well, and if we finish 5th and not 3rd, okay. And in the last 5 games, we are 6th, I think, for XG, which is fine. You always see the table of XG of that Villa are 17th or 18th. The first 5 or 6 games of the season where we couldn't score, we scored like once or twice, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that made sense. But since then, we're around mid-table. But in the last 5 games, top 6 for XG against Arsenal. The best defence probably in European football. Best in Champions League, 1 goal conceded. Premier League, 10 goals conceded. 2.72 XG they faced against us. So we were the best attacking team that they've faced, essentially. So it's very simple to look at, but Villa's XG isn't very good. Well, actually, it's not that bad in the last few weeks. No one would be making those arguments if they just looked at the last 4 or 5 weeks. So that's half of our 9-match winning run. 6 wins in the Premier League. it's not really a big concern for me, as much as it was back then. We can get into January and how Villa probably need a bit more quality here and there, if they can do that. But we're third in the Premier League and we have a cushion to some really top teams.
Yeah.
So.
Have you got anything to say about XG, Matt?
I remember when was Tom Fox here? 10 years ago. I remember me and some kind of gnarled old hacks were having lunch with Tom Fox in the Holt pub, and it was quite a new concept for us then, and Villa were appalling, and Tom Fox was spouting all this kind of XG stuff, and we were like, what's this silly American man trying to pull the wool over our eyes with? But for the context, I was probably more cynical than anybody around that table, because Tom Fox had phoned me about 3 weeks previously saying, "Oh, Matt, you should see how brilliant we are on the training pitch. We've been scoring goals from left, right and centre."
God.
So I was already a little bit kind of sceptical about it. But I don't know, listen, until the league table is ordered in terms of XG rather than in terms of points won, football matches won, goals scored, goals conceded, then, you know, I'm not anti. What did you call me the other day? Geeks or the stats geeks?
No, that was you, wasn't it?
I think it was you. But yeah, I'm a bit more old school. So if we score more goals than the opposition, I don't mind where the goals come from, and I quite like it when they're bangers from 30 yards or more.
Yeah, and we talk.
Can I just quickly add to that? XG is valid, stats are valid, numbers are valid, but people just take it way too far to the point where Villa shouldn't be in the top half, they're rubbish. It's just not true.
You can't win that many games if you're rubbish.
You cannot win 15 out of 17 doing that.
You always
in a really competitive Premier League as well.
You always hear managers talking about how difficult it is just to win games in the Premier League, in the top division, to put a run together like that. I know some of them are in Europe as well, but 9 wins on the spin it's not just, mad that Villa are doing that. It's mad that anyone can do that. Yeah.
And do you know what will happen if we drop off slightly, which means it's just then maybe be 5th in February or something? There'll be people who say, yeah, well, we told you so, you're always going to drop off. Yeah, because it's football, we're probably not going to win 20 in a row. Do you know what I mean? So there will be a come down at some stage, but it's about how we can stay as consistent as possible. Doesn't mean winning every single week, but if you deal with a setback the next week, like the season we won, we didn't win, but fourth, we finished fourth, 23-24. There was a couple of games where, for example, United, we lost to them, didn't we? But then we got over the line against Burnley late on in that year, or maybe early January, I can't remember now. You win at Fulham when you're against it a little bit, and for me that was similar to the West Ham game, to be honest. 7th game in 3 weeks, both your left-sided defenders injured, twice behind, and you come out and win the game. That's a massive 3 points for me, and I don't care about XG in that way.
Yeah,
if you're going to come twice from behind and show that character, I couldn't give a damn what then some Twitter accounts may say on that platform about where Villa should be or not. It's, pretty ludicrous, really.
Yeah. Let's touch on Man United quickly before we get the lads up on stage to answer some questions. When we did the end of season preview, you and I did it in the office, I don't know if you remember, for the Man United game, and I was pretty confident then that we'd won games in a row, so surely Man United have been terrible, and that obviously went wrong. When you were pessimistic of, it can go wrong, how do you feel about this game at the weekend? Is this where the run comes to an end, or do we finally beat them?
You poor misguided fool. You really thought we were going to win, didn't you, on the last day of last season?
Yeah.
Do you not read? Do you not study history at school? Do you not know anything? What was the analogy I used? Something like 9 wins and then facing Man United. It's like Evel Knievel jumping over loads of double-decker buses and then skidding on a pile of sick. They're there waiting for us. They're always there waiting for us, no matter how bad we are. I think I'm going to task you with looking into that hoodoo and trying to give me some confident vibes this week. We're in great form. Villa Park is... it's a cliche, but Villa Park is a fortress. We should really trample all over them, but it's not that straightforward. Although actually, no, I'm not going to say it, because I'm going to jinx it.
Say it.
I think we might draw 1-1.
I think it's the only Premier League game on the Sunday, 4:30, I think. Villa Park will be rocking it. Everything's set up for it to be this grand occasion, and we'll see. But what I would say is if we can get the win, we would then increase that gap even more to those 6th, 7th positions. And of course you have Chelsea and Arsenal both away from home. Just after Christmas, that's an incredibly difficult couple of football matches. But if you can beat United, don't sound negative here, but even if you were to pick up 0 points out of 6, you're still going to be in those positions, and it'll be okay. You've then got Forest at home in the new year and your FA Cup match, and then you look forward to that a bit more, finishing the Europa League. So the next couple of months will be really important for us, and that does start with that United game. I'm hoping that we can continue that run, because if you can get over the line and get your 10th win, I just think those Chelsea and Arsenal games, not that it's a bit of a free hit, I don't think they are, because we are still in that, if you want to call it a title race, but there isn't as much pressure on us than if we were to beat United. If you don't beat United, then all of a sudden the couple of teams behind just start to catch up, and you feel like you've got to maybe get a result here and a result there.
Right, can we get Ty Bracey and Dan Bardell to the stage, please? Give them a round of applause if they want to make their way. We've got about 40 minutes, so nobody hog the mic, please. Bardell. Firstly, I'll come to you first, actually. Has Morgan Rogers surpassed Grealish?
I think it's...
A few murmurs in the crowd there, a few woos.
It's different, isn't it? Like, if you think, if Jack had been with Villa at the stage they're at now, what kind of level would he be operating at? I think it's different. They're different. Jack's an academy player that was with the club his whole life, so it's very, very romantic. Rogers has obviously got local ties and he's a sensational player. I like the fact that he's willing to learn, and he's obviously willing to listen to Emery, and he works hard and has added extra things to his game over the last couple of months, like the free kick goal he scored the other week, and obviously his sensational goal that he scored yesterday. I don't think he's at Grealish level yet, but I do think that he is now like Villa's genuine bona fide match winner.
Do you think it's different, though, in the sense that Grealish was the guy in that? I know what you're saying as well. Grealish was in this team. We're obviously never going to know because he was the star of his team. But Grealish was the standout in that team, whereas we're way better now, and Rodgers is still probably one of the standouts of that better team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think he's quite unique, isn't he? Because we're actually quite an old team, generally, whereas he's the young player. He's the one that's probably worth the most in the squad. If Villa were to put everyone up for sale, he'd be the one that would go for the most money. It's an interesting comparison because obviously they play in similar positions, but I also just think they're like really different types of player as well. But Rodgers is probably going to go on and do more for England than Jack's ever done. So arguably you could say Rodgers is a higher level player, because at the moment it's a genuine conversation as to whether he plays or Bellingham plays at the World Cup, and that's a very high standard, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. The next one's from Mustafa Salifu, who says, what has been the best and worst moment each of you have witnessed as a Villa fan, but it has to be something you were in the stadium for?
One of the most angry things, one of the things that makes me most angry was when that chap at Crystal Palace was trying to move Robin Olsen, a professional goalkeeper, out of a goal to have the mascots kick the ball into an empty net, when the other net on the other side of the pitch was
that was absolutely the highlight that night, though, wasn't it? That was the best bit.
Yeah, absolutely was. But it still annoys me now because he had this real attitude about him as well. So that is definitely up there. Like, football things will always make you feel a certain way, but that in particular, like, pushed the boundary for me. I felt like lodging a complaint to the press officer or something. I don't know.
Did we lose 4-0 at home to Chelsea in the relegation season? And how old my lad had been 7 or 8, and it was a difficult journey to get him properly immersed in all things Villa then. And it was the same day as the protest, was it? The Proud History, What Future, or whatever it was, and it was such a sad moment that my son's highlight that night was seeing people turn those banners into paper aeroplanes from the top tier of the whole end and see which ones could make it onto the pitch. And I thought, no, that's not what I've not brought you up for this, basically. So that was probably one of the lowest, although there's been many down the years, and the top one is probably biggest cliche really, but that win at Wembley in 1994, when I was under the impression that Villa won trophies every couple of years. It was just a really, really special moment. Yeah, that's why I'm just obsessed with us having to win something again, because my son's equivalent to that is seeing us beat Derby in a playoff final. Obviously, we've had some big European nights. We've been lucky enough to see those in recent years, but there's nothing that can rival winning a trophy at Wembley.
John, if we won every trophy available to us this season, would we still have to sell a player in the summer to appease the FFP gods? Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because it's revenue, isn't it? It's a different ballgame.
Oh, that's disgusting, isn't
Wait,
it?
how much do you win for? How much do you get for winning the Premier League? Not a whole lot compared to the getting in the Champions League, and we've been in the Champions League and sold lots of players. But I don't like the negativity about selling players. We've done that for the last 3 years, and now we're in a title race apparently, and we're pushing to get back in the Champions League. It doesn't really stop the Unai Emery plan. So be it. If it happens, we'll be fine.
A question from Big Harold, Ty. Who is your current first name on the team sheet? For Big Harold, it has to be Kamara.
I agree with Big Harold.
Where is
Wherever Big Harold is. Give us away,
Got
Big Harold.
a name like that,
Where
you've
are
got to agree with him, mate. Yeah. Imagine if you don't. He'll have you.
Yeah, nice and easy one for me.
Think Kamara as well?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Anyone different to Kamara? I think Tielemans.
We can cope okay without Tielemans now because we've got Onana who's having a better second season than he did first season. I think it might be Konsa.
I mean, there's the fact that we can probably all pick a player here that's different with enough validity that it could be Konsa, it could be Kamara, it could be Tielemans, it could be Rodgers.
Can I make a point that Cash and Kamara are both on 4 yellows, so they'd miss a game if they get another in the next couple or three. I actually think missing Matty Cash is actually bigger than missing Kamara, which sounds mental.
No, because no one else does the same thing.
Yeah.
Lindelof right back.
My point exactly.
Furious Badger says, do you think it's still funny that after 16 games we can still use the joke? What's the difference between Wolves and a triangle? A triangle has 3 points and Wolves have 2. That's the joke.
Did you say still funny?
That's one about Ollie Watkins. Tar, I'll come to you for this one because we've all done millions of podcasts about Ollie Watkins, so I'll give you the floor for this one. Tom says, Watkins is 10 goals away from 100 Villa goals in all competitions. Is that right, John?
Yep, Tom knows his stuff.
Okay, good. Which would see him enter our top 10 scorers of all time. He's also scored more league goals for us than anyone since the 1960s. He's going through a tough time, but how much responsibility do the fans have to lift him, given what he's done for the club, and how close is he to achieving a huge landmark? Would he get 10 this season?
Yeah, 10 in all competitions is absolutely achievable. But the thing for me was not so much this season. I kind of understand where people are coming from this season. But I think we had probably, a bit prematurely wrote Ollie off over the last... fans were very quick online to give Ollie a hard time. And, up until recently, he was a... How much would you pay for if someone said to you, you can get a striker in and they're going to give you 20 goal contributions a season, what does that look like on paper in terms of how much it's going to cost? Now, echoing the conversation that you guys had in the first part of the show, I think that we do need a little bit more up front, but he's been our greatest striker in recent, probably since, would you argue, since Benteke? Is that a fair?
Yeah, Tammy Abraham in the Championship, but in terms of Premier League,
yeah. In terms of in the top flight, he's done. He's been on that journey with us, hasn't he? In the Premier League, and if it's time to turn the corner and get a new starting striker, then I'm at peace with that if that's what we need to do to go to the next level. But I would like to see Ollie stay for the rest of his days. I think he'll always have a place at Villa Park, but how much longer he'll be that our number one striker is maybe coming to an end.
I genuinely believe that if Emery could have got Rashford in the summer, he would have sacrificed Watkins in the summer for Rashford, because I think he would have looked at it and thought, look at what I did with Ollie Watkins, made him one of the best strikers in Europe. I think Rashford's kind of tool set is maybe higher than the Watkins is. So I think if Emery could have swapped those two, I do think he genuinely would have got Rashford in. And when I watched Rashford play last season, actually, as much as I'm a massive Ollie fan, Rashford was very underrated when he was at Villa. When I think back now and think about how good he was, like the way he take people on, his pace and his power, I think it's an exaggeration to say that if we had Rashford now, we'd probably be top of the league.
Matt, if Evan Gesson is the answer, what is the question?
Who's the only Villa player worse than me to have actually made more than 10 first-team appearances?
Bingo! Yeah, you got that spot. Oh, Evan Gesson.
What was he? There used to be this series in Heroes and Villains fanzine called Great Scapegoats of Our Time or something. He's definitely there now. I think we've got to give him... It's a cop-out, this is, but if Emery sees a player there, then I think we've all got to be patient with him. And the fact that, it's a bit like Watkins not scoring any goals. If you're not going to score any goals, don't score any goals at a time where we're winning every week, regardless of how many goals you score. Evan Gesson, if you're going to tangle your own legs in knots most weeks, do it at a time when the team around you are winning football matches, which is really harsh. But I do think that... I don't know what to say about him, Dan, because I
hope we all look silly in a year's time of like, wow, we wrote him off.
Yeah, I'll balance it a bit and say that we all wrote cash off, didn't we, in the summer after that mistake against United. We all wrote...
I think Villa wrote cash off when they signed Evan Gesson, didn't they? They were 35 million they wrote off, didn't they?
True, yeah, very true. Morgan Rogers was getting a lot of stick, and quite a lot of fans as well, saying that he's just a glorified championship player, and look where we are now. So I'm never going to write a Villa player off under Unai Emery this quickly, but I'm also not going to sit here and say, oh no, wait, he'll become a great player. I don't know if I believe that, but it's too early because of what we've seen ourselves with our own eyes about some players. So I'm not going to write him off just yet.
Obviously, he played some games up front for Nice. Is he a right winger? Is that the problem? Would he be better
it's part of the problem, yeah.
Would he be better off up front?
No.
Oh, I don't know.
Not sure.
Let's move on, shall we? I don't know what the downside of this one is. From Jora Zagoro, of course. Would Matt still accept a corporate ticket to Arsenal away if he had to sit in a box full of bald people?
To sit in a box full of bald people?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Like free range?
Well, absolutely take a ticket to Arsenal away, wouldn't you?
You've seen this film, you've seen the scene from The Witches when they all rip the wigs off. I'd accept a corporate anywhere and do anything for it, you know that.
Dan says, who do we miss most of the players that have moved on? I saw, actually, was it we did a podcast, or it might not have been us actually. It was our podcast, but I don't think it was one of you two, saying about Douglas Louise, and that we kind of like moved past, we moved past him and like, actually, didn't really, don't notice that he's not there kind of thing. Sam would feel so good. As at the time, the thought of losing someone like that, it was like, he's a really good player, we need him. Is there any one of the last few years where you think, actually, now we've improved? You can't say Grealish.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, we've been asked the question.
No, it was a while ago, but there's not many feelings that are as good as when he would be on the ball with 3 or 4 players around him and he would skip past them so effortlessly. It was a feeling that I haven't witnessed very often at Villa Park with many players. I remember when we were signing Adama Traore from Barcelona, I was like, oh my God, we're signing the next Messi. And then I think we had a game against Arsenal where he ran for about 5 or 6 players all the way down to the whole end, and I think that was the only highlight of his entire time at Villa. But yeah, I know it's very cliche to say Grealish, but there wasn't many things that felt warm in the heart like watching him skip past players on his own turf.
I wanted Jack in the summer, but I'm not going to get into him now. I would actually twist that a little bit and say we've sold pretty well, haven't we? We got actual money from selling Diego Carlos. We sold Duran for 65 million, Philogene for 20. Where else? Louise for less than what we wanted, but in the end, he's not playing so well for Juventus and now for Forest. We've actually made a lot of money for players who, can't really match the level that they were showing for Villa. The only thing I would say to that as well would be, will other clubs look at us and think, right, we really want Morgan Rogers, but is he just playing at such a good level because he's got one of the best managers in Europe? And can he play this well under Thomas Frank or whatever it is? Do you know what I mean? Like, will teams resist bidding for our players a little bit, to an extent?
I think that's probably a poor example because you would take the risk on someone like him, but maybe somebody who is overperforming
poor example,
Villa, you go, we wouldn't take the gamble on Matty Cash because he's only working well because of Emery.
Yeah, I don't want to pin it on any of the players now, you said that, but that's what I'm trying to say. Are they all playing at such a good level, and there's bound to be a big reduction in performance at a different club? I don't know, but we have sold well. Looking at the question you've asked, straight away I thought I'd love to have Robert Snodgrass back for his personality, not his quality, but I don't look at the other players and think, oh yeah, I'd love them. It probably would be Duran, to be honest, because I do miss his chaos.
Do you not think Diaby? He was pretty good in his first season, looking back, and I think he would have got better in his second season. And I love the three that we play off Watkins at the moment, but I do think we're still crying out for that direct, pacey player.
Absolutely. It was always weird how Emery, when he left, said that he wasn't quite fitting in our structure and wasn't quite what we needed. And I thought, that's odd.
Because he wanted Rodgers to play as the 10, didn't he, I guess, ultimately.
Possibly
and we needed the money, I guess, as well.
Yeah. I would take Leon Bailey of the season that he played for us in a heartbeat, but it was one season in how many?
There was a question that I haven't got in front of me that was, would you take last season? Everyone Guess On's having a rough time on this episode. Would you take last season's Leon Bailey over Everyone Guess On? Just on the off chance he might.
Just because he at least provides some width, and I think Bailey, even on a bad day, he creates space for others and will just run at people. He'll keep doing it, and maybe once or twice he'll get through. I actually think in some ways as well, Bailey had a bad season last season. But, people were upset about Ramsey going, which I completely get, but actually the numbers of Bailey over the last 2-3 years were far superior to what Ramsey had offered.
Ramsey's another one that we've sold for good money, I think.
Has anyone finished Guillaume Balagai's book yet? Up here? Yeah? Okay, maybe this one's from you then. In his book, Balagai mentions that Louise wasn't sold for PSR, but because Emery felt Louise had hit his ceiling and couldn't develop any further, which players in the current squad do you think could be in a similar position?
Louise was sold for PSR. We were. I don't know if that's maybe missed, but we were.
Of beef between Townley and Balagai.
I'm sure he'd say it himself. We were close to getting a points deduction if we didn't sell players, but Louise was obviously an asset they thought they could sell now for an amount of money.
Every team that wins the title has a game where they kind of started to believe that was the moment where things went for us, like you mentioned Leicester before, of that won't last forever. And actually, you know what, it might. Is there a fixture coming up, or again, are we all just going to stick with it's too early? Like, let's say you were to beat Arsenal at the end of the month. Would that be the one where you go, well, that was a massive 6-pointer. We beat them twice in a month. Is that the one where we start to change our mind a bit?
This weekend had convinced me, to be honest.
Beat Man United, do you think we might win the league?
I'd love to say yes. If we beat Man United, we could be there, but I just think it's early. The only other thing I would also add to the Leicester chat is that there was really no competitor that had real... Was it Tottenham, maybe, that were up there with them, and they had no experience of winning anything then. Villa, if they're going to compete, are competing against the best defence in the league. Great players in the Arsenal squads. They were missing the two best centre-backs and still played Timber, Calafiori, Ben White and Hincapié against us. And, of course, Man City. It's not going to be something where you get 75 points and finish first.
John, I don't like the comparison to the Leicester, because Leicester was a one-off phenomenon, and we are consistently brilliant and have been, and we deserve to be up there in the mix. I think it's a bit, and that's not on you, but
no, you bang on. No, you're right. Fourth since we come in. When I say Leicester, I don't mean a rise out of nowhere. It's more a team that you'd never expect to win the league before the season started, I suppose. And I think we were still that. I don't think anyone would have suggested we were going to win the league back in August. So.
When we win the Premier League this season, what route should the parade take? And we all live all over the place now. Pastels in, Bromsgrove, Kiddy, that'd be quite useful.
Definitely not down La Ramblas, John, eh?
Through everywhere apart from B6, because if you look at social media, apparently no Villa fans live in Birmingham, so everywhere but Birmingham.
No one drinks in town. Who of the current youth setup might be the next cab off the rank? And is it just easy to go? Probably George Hemmings.
Cheers. Yeah, well, no, it's not as easy to do that. He's a very exciting talent. Obviously, we've got a few of them, but they have to get the loan moves and they have to get experiences, don't they? I don't see anyone right now who could come in, plug and play at the age of 18. I don't see that. But yeah, I will say George Hemmings, not just because he's been in around the squad, but obviously in pre-season as well, he held his own really well, especially in that Marseille game. And that was a horrible atmosphere, horrible game. Everyone was getting kicked up in the air, including Mason Greenwood. And Hemmings held his own really well. So, yeah, I'll say him.
Brogio looks a good player, doesn't he? But he suffered with a back injury for a long time. He's been on the bench a few times, but all these players, they probably need loans. I think it's a big jump to go from playing under 21s football without bridging the gap. Even Jack went off and played for Notts County. I think they need some EFL experience before they can break into the Villa team. Bogard had that as well, didn't they?
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to just name one and suggest that the others won't make it. That's not at all what I'm saying, because last season they won.
That's what Ruben does, didn't he?
Yeah, because FA Youth Cup last season, the Premier League Cup that they won as well. This is a really strong group of players for their age, so I don't want to just name one, but equally I'm not going to name all 20. So we have a few, but they all need to make their own way.
I want to come to you two for this. I'm going to take it in a slightly different tangent. We did an episode a few weeks ago of like really niche things about football that we love and then we hate. So I want you to think of something that you hate that's quite niche. Give you a couple of seconds to think. Because this one just feels like, I don't know how we're supposed to answer this, it just feels like a really niche thing that's irritated this one person. Why do players sometimes jog back rather than bust a gut? And Nana did it after Rice tackled him against Arsenal, which led to the goal. Barkley also did it against Leeds at the end of the game last month. By comparison, Tammy Abraham sprinted all the way back in the playoff final when he lost the ball. Surely it's unacceptable. I mean, I don't even remember any of those things happening, to be honest. Is there anything that's like super niche about football that you're like, that really annoys me?
Kind of, but not really related to what was going on the pitch. So on the relegation season, I sat in L3 and there was a guy who sat behind me for the entire season, and no matter what the score was, he'd shout, "Come on, Villa," but not Villa. It's like an F, for the entire season, and every time he just really used to grind. He looked a bit like you, actually, Kendo.
It's probably my Botox.
But he just used to shout, we'd be like 3-0 down, but like, "Come on, Villa."
He actually stopped doing it now, but there's a guy who's like sat in front of me for like 25 years, and for my whole life, at the start of every game, as soon as... Am I allowed to swear?
If you want.
As soon as the kick-off happens, he would shout, "Come on then, you bunch of overpaid, lazy bastards." Like, literally at the start. He stopped doing it now, but at the start of every game, he would do that, and I thought, what, you've annoyed before the game's even like kicked off? Like, I don't understand that mentality of like going. Some people go to the football just to be annoyed and like shout at people, and the people in away games that spend the whole game like looking at the home crowd, like they don't watch any of the game and they like offer people out and say, "I'll see you outside." The people that do that as well, I've never understood that either.
I might start our next post-match show with you like that. Just do that for the intro.
What, calling me an overpaid lazy bastard?
Yeah.
I'm not overpaid.
You're lazy. What league position would you forego to ensure the city is claret and blue should we play Small Heath in the Cup or League again, ever? I.e., would you forego a Champions League position to ensure that we beat them home and away? No.
We beat them home and away regardless.
I wouldn't give up the Champions League to beat Blues.
They're obviously doing okay at the moment, but it's...
Are they?
No, they're not.
Well, they were on like... No, I get that. But they were on like... This is like probably the best they felt about their club for decades, yet at the time when they're feeling like this, we're still doing what we're doing. So there's like always levels to the game, and they might beat us here and there, even though they haven't really done that in recent years when we have played them, but we will just always be superior to them. So to have to like give something up just to beat them, I don't think they're that as relevant enough to do that.
I genuinely believe the situation they're in is similar to us with Dr. Tony and the theme park situation. I genuinely believe it's a load of nonsense. Like, for reference, in the season they got relegated, up until they hadn't filled their stadium. The last time they filled their stadium was against Fulham in 2018, and then they didn't sell out again until they got relegated into League One and then started to do well in League One. Like, you're not going to sell a 60,000 seater stadium every week when your fans only show up when you're winning. It's just not going to happen. It's not sustainable.
Well,
I genuinely think it's nonsense. I really don't think anything will come from it.
Talk about it's NFL. They want to make a bit of a landmark in Birmingham to make revenue. Blah blah. I just think there's 100 years of history that they'd have to try and eclipse on us to get anywhere near to a conversation of that the city isn't claret and blue. So I'm not. They could come up and play us or whatever. It doesn't really mean anything. There's more than just a weekend of football based on what I'm talking about.
I'd like to play them in the Cup in the next couple of years, to be honest, because I'm a little bit worried that the longer they are apart from us, that match, that reunion's going to have years and years of feistiness and hostility again. It was, anybody who remembers it when they came back up, what was it, after 16 years? Back in 2003, was it? The game at St Andrews and the game at Villa Park, it was just kind of... I'm all for edge and I'm all for, a bit of spice in football matches, but it was just silly, and there's going to be a generation who are raised on stories of wanting to kind of scrap with your local neighbours and stuff like that. And I'd rather, even if we played them in the Cup this year or next year, there's still going to be that edge to it. But the longer it goes on, it's just going to build into something horrible.
I'd be more than happy to never play them ever again. I just don't want to be associated with them in any way. There's nothing to gain from our side of it. If you beat them, it's, what do you expect? You got millions of pounds. If you lose to them, you never hear the end of it. It's just, I don't want to be associated with them.
No, we don't need them. They need us.
Yeah, scum. Slugs. Yesterday's match aside, how do you rate Conser compared to the club's other centre-halves over the years? I'll come to you and Matt and Dan for this one. I was fortunate to watch McGrath in his prime. I think, questionably, he's the best since that era. Did you see McGrath a bit?
Yeah, I saw him for maybe 3 or 4 seasons when I was young, but when you're young, you don't really watch the defenders, you tend to watch the attackers, so I don't remember him being this great defender because I was a kid, basically, but my dad always says to me that he's the best player he's ever seen play for the Villa, and many other people feel that way as well. I think Villa have had quite a lot of iconic centre-backs. You think of Mellberg, Larsson, and they were really good players. I think if you maybe look at the body of work and the elements of success that we've had since Conser's been there, and he's been a huge part of that, I think he's definitely in the conversation amongst Larsson, Mellberg, those other centre-halves. He just goes about his business so consistently. Do you think? Yeah, I mean, I got an away shirt the other day with his name on the back, and then he dropped the worst performance he's ever dropped in a Villa shirt on Sunday. But other than that, he's so consistent. He's been such a good defender for us to play games in the Champions League, scored in the Champions League against PSG. I think he's right up there, but no one's going to top McGrath ever, probably.
The McGrath element, everybody likes a flawed genius, don't they? And the backstory. And I think to make it a level playing field, what would you have to do? Go and, attack Conser's legs with a baseball bat and then, spin him round, 100 times before he goes out on the pitch. So I think, it's a nostalgia thing, isn't it? We always think fondly of those times. I was a much younger man then. Life seemed easier and, more exciting. So he's in a box in his own special place, Paul McGrath. But in terms of Ezri Konsa, and again, if you consider, he was plucked from, obviously played with Dean Smith at Brentford, but hadn't played top flight football before, and he's one of the players, and you can lump in a few of the others from early in the Dean Smith kind of regime, that have every step that we've made as a football club in the last 4 or 5 years, they've been able to step up and not look out of place and get better and better and better. Konsa, that opening goal yesterday, it was a Konsa accident waiting to happen, because there's so many I've never seen a defender who's so good at winning fouls, really, as Konsa. But he's been first class, and I fully expect him to start for England in the World Cup. Not that that's necessarily always a good thing when Aston Villa players get too comfortable in the England squad. But yeah, he's been brilliant. But I don't know what he'd have to achieve for me to let him oust Paul McGrath.
All right, let's end then with January transfers. We'll kind of go around the room here. We all know that we want a striker or a forward. If you had to take that as read, what kind of areas do we think we need to push on from whatever it is, being third to a title race or to solidify Champions League, to win the Europa League, whatever it looks like? What's the kind of missing ingredient that Villa need to rectify in January?
I was really excited when we got Harvey Elliott on loan, because I think he's a really good footballer, but he's just obviously not an Unai Emery footballer, which I'm that's okay. I'm at peace with that. But I think I'm at the point with Unai Emery where I don't question anyone he brings in. I don't question anyone who isn't good enough. I think Harvey Elliott's a great footballer, but if how he plays or the demands that Unai has of him isn't good enough, then I'm always gonna back Unai. I think we could probably use maybe another winger, maybe a striker. Well, yes, a striker, and possibly one at right back as backup, maybe.
Yeah, that's my list as well. Really, you need another right back. Your midfield's set, I think. A right winger, right back, and a striker. And then what you do with the loans, presume Elliott would go back.
Yeah.
There's obviously other things that Villa could do there. I take away the buy obligation, but sending him back I think is probably best for everyone right now. And even on the left, I'm okay with Sancho staying, but I wouldn't be against it if Emery thinks he can do something else there, to be honest. But that would then take someone else to take him with his big wages.
Dan, you did a podcast with Tim Vickery about Alisson. Didn't really sound that promising.
Well, I was really excited to hear Villa were signing a Brazilian player, and then I did that pod with Tim Vickery, and he straight away was like, he's not first team ready, he's a bit raw, he's not first choice at Gremio. But then these were the kind of things that were maybe levelled at Rodgers, and he did manage to hit the ground running to an extent. Wesley, probably the less said about him the better. I think I don't think we'll do loads in January. I think there's a danger you do too much, and that takes away from what you're doing now and what's actually making you good right now. I think the young Brazilian will obviously come in. Alisson Edward is his name. Is that his name? He'll obviously come in and could be a bit part player. Could be someone that gets minutes. We don't know yet. We'll definitely get a striker, as you've said. That's probably red. After that, I probably wouldn't be looking at doing too much, because the squad size is at the same size as what it was at last season in the second half, when we were well set and we had options in every position and we could change the team and it wouldn't make too much difference. The quality is probably not quite as great as it was last season, but for someone to have to come in, people are going to have to go out, and I'm not sure how feasible that is in January.
I think it's going to be a right-sided defender, isn't it, really? Because you can see already, obviously we've got Bogart and Lindelof who can fill in there. Unfortunately, the midfield so well stocked that they're not going to be required that often to fill in central midfield. But you just see now with Mings out and Torres, and I know they're both left-sided, but you can see that back four starting to creak with the options. So I think I'd look, if such a person exists, I'd look at probably a right back who can play right centre half as well, because that's my one fear.
I think we're done. That's all the questions. There are plenty in there. Any that we don't get round to, we'll answer in future Q&As. I really enjoyed that, gents. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it, Dan and Ty. Round of applause for our guests, please. And this is our final show at Hockley Social. Matt, do you want to do some words for the team here?
Yeah, it's not just because he gave me a free Coke, but just want to say thank you to Andy and the team at Hockley Social. This brilliant venue is going to be no more at the end of the year, but it's served us well and it's served the city well during the time that it's been here. I hope I'm not giving away too many confidences here, but hopefully Andy's offered us potentially the chance to do shows at Herbert's Yard near Longbridge. So if you haven't been there, check that out, and we might try and get one of these shows there. And is it over in the waterfront at Merriall, Andy? So we could be bringing the road show to the Black Country, which makes it a little bit easier for me and Dan to get there. But yeah, just thank you, Andy, to you and your staff. It's been a brilliant venue, and you've always looked after us every time we've been here. So can we give Andy and the Hockley Social team a round of applause as well?
Shout out to, was it Mike, who's come, Mark, sorry, close enough. He's come all the way from Cornwall, 5 hours, and he's going back tonight. Fair play. And he won't be the only one who's come a long distance, and whether you've come 5 minutes down the road or 5 hours, we appreciate everybody turning out 10 days before Christmas, so thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, Matt Kendrick, John Townley, Dan Bardell and Ty Bracey, and we'll see you for our big Christmas special on Wednesday, and maybe some other bits and pieces over the next few days as well. Thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.